still doing that shit, Andre? Oh, for sure. Yeah. Check me out.
You see it, man?
It's still Dre Day, nigga. Hey.
You're here.
Me here?
Yeah.
I'll miss you over there.
Should we test our microphones? Are they working? Can people hear us? That's
I
fabulous.
hope they're working.
I've already learned something in the first 2 seconds. I need a new headshot. I mean, look at this.
Well, I saw this one and I was like, lasers.
It's fabulous.
That one needs laser. In.
All right. Thank you, everybody here. Maybe a round of introductions beyond just the net titles here. Ed, if you want to kick us off, just a quick introduction for everybody here. We'll get started.
I'm Ed Herman. I'm the managing partner of Brown & Crouppen. We are headquartered in St. Louis and Kansas City. We've been around since 1979, but I've been there, this is my 22nd year. So, is that, you feel like you've gotten enough on that intro? I feel like it was enough.
Solid. I'm Carlos Weigel. I'm chief creative at Morgan & Morgan, ex-agency guy, 16 years. Yeah, I like making fun, weird ideas.
Yeah, Anthony Johnson. I was an engineer, tech guy first, accidental lawyer. Now run a big mass tort class action firm out of the tech capital of the world, Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's the second thing that we've learned today. The tech capital of the world is Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah, little known fact.
So, all right, honestly, fairly lighthearted discussion that we had planned for today. But I think to the audience here, most of the people here know who you guys are, if not by face, but certainly by the name of the firm. And as Carlos mentioned, right, likes to try. You're so right, I got it in shades. Yeah. All right, noted.
I want to know how you got that triangle of illumination around your head.
It's tricky.
Love it.
If you have enough money, you could pay someone to put lasers around you. But as the title of our session is called, right, Beyond the Billboard, right, curious to at least start off with you guys maybe some interesting ideas that you guys have done recently in the name of advertising or branding your firm. I don't need to call on someone, but if anybody here wants to start with something new and interesting they've done recently.
Well, you know, I will say this. You know, there's a common joke, right, in the world of legal marketing where people say 50% of my marketing is working, but I don't know which 50% it is. And people have said that for years, and it's just been a joke. I was committed a year ago, after we had LitiQuest back in November, to realize with the budgets that we're spending, you know, 50% is a lot of money. And it's not enough to not know what's working and what's not. You've got to figure it out. Because that other 50%, you could put that money right in your pocket, or you can double down on the stuff that's working. So that's been a mission of mine over the last year. And I don't want to hog time. You may want a little extra from them. But I will tell you, when we're ready for it, I'll talk to you about our television experiment.
Okay. Well, keep us posted, I guess.
I want to make sure.
I appreciate you sharing the stage. Carlos.
Cool. Yeah, I think for me, it's just what's new, what's around the corner. And luckily, I don't have the challenge of worrying about the financial side because I'm just on the creative side. So all I think about is...
And you've got an unlimited supply of money. which is a great thing. I don't say that in a bad way.
I don't know
it's a
about
wonderful
that,
thing.
but I like the fact that I get to pie in the sky think, and it's my job to push, and it's their job to say, Carlos, that's too far.
Which I'm sure never happens.
Yeah, no. But recently we did some stuff with the metaverse, which was really fun, some animations. We got some stuff in the works. It's going to be pretty fun, some comedy campaigns, and trying to resonate with the consumer in a different way. Maybe.
Yeah, I saw the metaverse. It looked like Sean Connery and Jay Leno had a baby.
The metaverse takes 40 pounds
But I think they called him Don Morgan. Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
It was cool though.
Yeah, I think my job and what I'd love to do is manipulate the platforms and get us new eyes and just challenge what the industry's doing.
Yeah, it was funny. I was driving home from Florida with the family, and you drive through, a lot of the South, and like 99% of billboards are lawyers, and like 99% of the billboards are like injured ?
And 99% of those are Morgan & Morgan?
Yeah.
Alexander Sonora.
They're not. They don't say injured as much anymore. But you just kind of realize it's like nobody fucking cares about that billboard ever, and they don't know your name. Ask a non-lawyer to name a lawyer in your state. One lawyer. They can't do it. So it's like, make them remember something, to your point. Like one of our projects recently, I said, all right, take our billboards, and I've done it too, all sevens, injured, question mark, because eventually it works, but that's not why it works. It works because eventually they start to know who you are, and that triggers some memory. So I was like, delete all of them and get natural attention for anything. No call to action, no number, no nothing. And so we thought, like, what's the most polarizing topic, to your point? And I was like, and we looked at like NFTs, like with the Bored Apes and like crypto. I was like, subculture, they're insane. I was like, so let's throw something up there, and just like the amount of reaction and like the visceral, kind of relationship you establish with people you never knew before. It's an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, it grabs a lot of eyeballs, I guess, and we were discussing this earlier, right? Not the ability just to grab eyeballs, but to actually hold those eyeballs on you. We were discussing that Ed is a master of that with his YouTube channel, the ability to have people not just click on the ad, but actually watch it. If you guys have not yet learned how to eat cereal, you will. You will. But how do you find the ability to sort of balance that, Anthony, right? The ability to not only attract people's eyeballs, but to really keep their attention on you. I know you like attention, but to keep attention on you and your firm long enough to get something out of that.
I think that's when you get into tactics and strategies. I mean, billboards, my kind of joke is like, people rarely wreck into the billboard. Like, so they don't actually remember it. They see it over time, and it's a relationship. And so there's tactics to get awareness. And then as you get engagement, like, you really have to come back and say, like, what's your story of your company that integrates with all the different tactics? So I think that just gets a little more strategic, and you start tying in other channels, you start tying into, data, and anytime you can't actually track them. I was joking the other day, I was like, if there's a way that I could actually put a tracking pixel on like people's eyeballs, like as they walk around New York, like then, you can actually track every data point.
There's a subgroup of people who believe that's happening. Right?
We'll get there. But until then, billboards are kind of that point where you're seeing it, but you're not really able to connect the dots. But the moment you have a dot, like that's when you can really hammer them on the rest of the story.
I hate billboards. We do them. It's just part of the overall. We're cutting back on them just to more isolated locations where more of our potential clients actually reside. I think a lot of people, sometimes their ego plays. There's a temptation to just go for the most eyeballs, the biggest highways. But if that's not really where your clientele travels on a day-to-day basis, it's really not the best idea behind that. But that's just billboards. I'm not a big fan of it. You had mentioned the videos, and a lot of people see those videos, and they sound funny and entertaining, but nothing to do with the law. But when you get people hooked on something, it's like flypaper. And once people have engaged with us, now we own them. They're a captive audience. We can then retarget them for the things that we want to give them, the legal medicine, the other side of it. But first, you got to get them interested. You got to get them into your little universe. And part of what we did with building up the BCTV and those videos was building captive audiences. Our Facebook followers exploded. I have a fan page that has a very dedicated and growing following, and our YouTube subscribers. So that's where it's been at its most effective. And truthfully, it's really, let's be honest, it's the reason why I'm on stage now, because I was a disruptor. And that's what we all try to do, is try to break through the noise of what's out there. Then once you do that, you really have to pin down what's working and what's not. And it's not always what you think is working. So, but that's very specific per firm, If you want, you go ahead and pipe in.
No, I was just moving. But yeah, I think for me it's like a message mix and a media mix. I want to hit people at different times, at different places, saying different things. And sometimes it's just, look at me, hey, over here. And the other times it's credibility and real stories of justice and things like that. So I think it's where and when and how. But I like the ability, like you said, bring them in the door with laughter, and then hit them with some heart, and eventually, even if it's not right now, I think that if you stop people in their tracks with a billboard, let's say, and maybe Philly perhaps, and it gets a little bit of noise, in a few years people will forget about the noise, but they'll still remember the name.
Right,
and
that's true. That's the whole, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
That's right.
You guys have banked on that, and it's worked.
Yep.
Hey, it's worked. Nobody can say it hasn't worked for them, but it obviously has.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I started out very much like data points and engineering, tracking, cross-channel, everything, which we still do a lot of. But I kind of had to reframe as we got bigger and tried to get into like more market share. You start realizing it's like a friendship. Look at like your advertising like on the other side is not a client. It's not someone you don't know. It's like, how do you become friends with something? Well, you don't just talk about lawyered or injured or we'll call you back. Like who texts somebody, hey, we'll call you back? Like, hey friend, nobody, right? So it's like, give them some value, give them something interesting, like make them that relationship, the different touch points, the calls, the texts,
You know, to that point, I can tell you that, and I know this is going to sound like a brag. I guess it is. But
all good brags.
It's not.
I've now for 4 straight years.
It's not though if you say that.
For 4 straight years, I have been the most searched profile on super lawyers in the entire state of Missouri, and it's not because I'm in court, you know, resolving big claims. Because I don't go to court, and we have other people that do that. It's because we've aroused their curiosity, and they've wanted to learn more, and that has actually, you know, funneled a lot of cases, you know, to our office, which is the ultimate goal, of course.
So I guess I want to get back to your earlier comment about your television campaigns in a moment, but this conversation I think lends nicely to you know, talking about how you actually track those things. And I'm not necessarily curious from like what piece of technology you use, but more so the mindset. Like you mentioned, there's branding awareness that's out there and knowing which 50% is working. And you said it's sort of your mission for the past year. How do you guys actually what is the approach you use to actually figuring out what's working and what's not working? I mean, obviously, Anthony, we're certain the lasers are going to work for you, but outside of adding more lasers.
It's all strings and quanta. No, so I look at like, to dial it down and really simple, because I tend to go very deep and very complicated. It's like 3 dials to me. It's awareness and attention. So how much you're emphasizing there, and that's hard to track. Either you look at views or overall brand efficacy, or people searching for your name, I guess is the way to do it. Then you get into like engagement and trust, which is driving them down a little bit. And then you can actually get into a lot of tracking there when it comes to platform-based tracking, digital tracking, call numbers, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then revenue is the 3rd dial. So attention, engagement, revenue. And it's what stage of your marketing process are you at? It's like you said, bad attention, good attention. That awareness is there. Yep. It's driving them down that funnel. And as you get down the funnel towards money, you can track a lot more. And that's where it gets interesting.
I mean,
No.
I just assume we'd go in order.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if
Starting
you'd
now.
rather, I
Okay.
can.
Now we're going to go in order?
We can go. Tracking. Yeah, not my favorite thing to talk about. We say in advertising, you know, focus group testing, does a good ad not make? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't buy it.
Let me ask you a question, Carlos,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
Because you guys have learned a lot going into new
Thanks
markets.
for supporting the question, Carlos. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for just jumping on the answer.
But you've obviously learned a lot there, because every time you go into a new market, you have a very particular strategy for how you attack, and it's typically, you know, TV first, and then it starts to get supplemented. So there must have been some sense that that was the formula that works to make the biggest impact.
Yeah, I think you know, I want Morgan & Morgan to go national. You know, that's my goal. My goal is for them to be, law, Morgan & Morgan. You know, insurance, Geico. Like that's where I'm headed.
Yeah.
As far as the strategy, you know, and data points and things like that, I think it's recall for me. It's, you know, and that may be brand heavy, TV heavy, but also supplementing social and yeah, I think it's just resonating, and it's tough to know what's going to hit.
I think I'll be ironic right now and bring this down to, I think, more earth, since you're out here like in Morgan level. I think because you can see the strategic movements when you're playing that capital going national, you know.
Sure.
But like if you have, like I started with tens of dollars, you know, like the tens of dollars in a closet, and you're actually trying to figure out how to get a case off tens of dollars, like you need to know where every penny goes, and so it's just a massively different perspective.
Massive point, but even the creative challenge of a small media buy is a creative opportunity, because you can use that small budget as like a path of like, okay, now I only have this little ring to play in, but let's flip the table.
You definitely work for the ad agency, huh?
You know, for us, as far as the attribution, you know, of course, we do like most firms do. You ask how they heard about you. You ask maybe how they got your phone number, so you have a first touch attribution and a last touch. And when we do that, we've done that. It's not the best system in the world, but we've been doing it for so long that it's a good apples to apples comparison to see how things are migrating over the years. So the question, of course, became the viability of television, because it is, for most advertising firms, that's our biggest expense. And so we were able to tell by historical numbers, like in St. Louis, for example, I know that 40% of our signups are either repeat clients or referrals from clients. And the digital stuff is, of course, the easiest to track because you can really track the journey all the way through. So what that really left was how much of what's left is truly television versus not. So the only way to find out was just go off the air for an extended period of time, which is what we decided to do. We knew it was kind of a scary, gutsy kind of move, but we just needed to know the answer of, is TV alive and well? Is it on life support, or is it dead? And so we went off the air for 3-4 months, and what we saw is that our signups, came down about 25%. And everything else was born out of digital and brand awareness and repeat business and referrals. So, but that's a significant drop. I mean, 25% is a lot. If you look at the attribution model, how many people attributed how they heard about us to television, it's 25%. So right out of the gate, we're saying, okay, now the only last piece is go back on the air, our budgets from before, and let's see if it's as easy as turning it back on to where it was. And it was. I mean, once we put that in, so my declaration is that TV is alive and well. I don't even think it's on life support, quite frankly, because I think amongst our demographic, they haven't really made the move over to the streaming services. I mean, that stuff's expensive. We take it maybe for granted, $10 for Netflix, $10 for Hulu. But to our clientele, they're watching broadcast television. And they're obviously seeing the spots all day. And the other proof of the thing is really based on your results. Because you come into like a St. Louis, for example, they don't know you guys at all. So you get a great opportunity to test television. Come in with a robust budget, and I have to imagine that you started getting cases on day one, which means that whether we like it or not, no matter how much we think people know us or we think they know our name, the reality of it is a large segment of the population, maybe as much as 50%, maybe more, does not have a lawyer on the top of their mind right now at all. They haven't made a decision ahead of time who they're going to hire, and they're grabbable. They're out there, and that's how you're able to go on television. And otherwise, the biggest brand name in town would get 100% of the calls.
Yeah, I think, Anthony, that was your point, right? Ask any non-lawyer who the lawyers are, and most of them don't know. So if you're out there creating a splash for yourself, you're just going to get people based on that.
Yeah, I pretty much stumbled into law school. I remember thinking that going in. I was like, I can't name a lawyer now, and I'm sitting here going to law school.
Getting back to your point, Anthony, talking about the first dollars that you want to spend. So most of the firms in here are probably a little bit further down the line in their marketing. Best use of the first dollars. Where would you put your very first? You have $100,000 to spend total marketing for a year. Where do you put it?
I go back to, it depends on where you're at the firm. If you're trying to start a brand, to your point, I look at digital and data is for verification. It's kind of that quote Jobs would always say, like, you can't ever measure things going forwards, only backwards. It's kind of that trust but verify, starting with creative, starting with a message, but data verifies whether you're right or not, for sure. So if you only have $100,000, you're gonna have to take a stab at your creative and your message and what's going on. So you're not playing the awareness game. Either do something fucking crazy and go viral, or just try to make some money. So you gotta really get into where do you guarantee money, conversion rate, and getting it for eyeballs.
To me, that's where I go is if you have a limited amount of money to spend, where you're just starting out, I really don't think you can attack the top of the funnel, which is the brand awareness piece. You go from brand awareness to a brand opinion of, a qualitative opinion of what they think about it. It's not enough to know your name. Say, well, you know their name? Yeah. Well, what do you think of them? Bunch of assholes. That doesn't help you. That's not going to get you business. So, there's the brand awareness, brand affection, all the way down the bottom of the funnel when they have a need and you want to hire them. But if you have limited money, I think you really have to try to focus right at the bottom of the funnel. You just don't have enough money to start making a splash on the big scale. So I would tell a person, don't neglect direct mail. It's a tried and true. It goes back to the beginning. Every state has different rules for what's allowed and whether there's a waiting period. I can tell you, I'm in Missouri. We have just about the worst set of rules for doing direct mail. We've got a 30-day wait and all sorts of other issues. And yet I would still tell you, from a return on investment standpoint, it still produces the most money with the least amount of investment.
To add to that, there's a little piece of data that says that average piece of mail stays in a home for 7 days.
Yeah, and I'm bringing up that average because I'm terrible about going through my mail.
But
it does stay there.
But you know, you have people sending email blasts to these lists that get deleted instantly. But there's a piece of mail with your branding and your message just sitting in someone's house, you know, as they pass.
Visually interesting.
Yeah, we brand our envelope.
Listen, if you're allowed to do that, do it. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds rudimentary, real basic. It's not sexy, but it's the bottom of the funnel, and it's far more cost-effective than pay-per-click. Now, if I had to pick a second method, if I had money left over after my direct mail campaign, I probably would do pay-per-click. I know I'm paying a disproportionately high amount for the case, but I'm getting cases out of it. And you need cases to produce revenue, and then you take that money, and that's what allows you to go into the other areas and build up. Make one point, because I'm thinking about it. I don't know how many of you watched Chad Dudley this morning, and Jonathan Stark, but it's all in the same thing. You want to simplify your business. You see all these KPIs and all this reporting, and that's all important for your managers and directors to be paying attention to. But if you're at the very top, there's really only two numbers you care about. And that is, how do we get our average fee per case as high as possible? And how do we get our case acquisition cost as low as possible? Because it's between those two numbers where all of the profit lives. Whatever profit you're going to have is between those two. And if you really think about it, every initiative that you do, you got to ask yourself, which of those two goals is it accomplishing? And if it's not accomplishing one of those two goals, it's probably not the best use of your time. But when you see Jonathan Stark show you how to increase the value of your cases, you see Chad Dudley value your cases, I think it's to the best that we can do. Our job is to maybe give some ideas as to how to get that cost of case acquisition as low as possible.
Yeah, I think us as lawyers, like, we got to get out of this head that we're not in a business. Like, you got to make money. You can't champion your cause. You can't represent a client if you're broke. You know, it's right. Like, so it's not just kind of cases. It's acquisition. It's running your payroll effectively. It's spending the right marketing dollars and messaging. Like, it's not smarmy or slimy. It's just being fucking smart. And if you stop being smart, you're going to go broke. Like, that's the bottom line.
But
and we got to stop doing that.
And to your point, you're saying direct mail is huge. You have a specialized envelope. Like, to me, it's making really good decisions on the small touch points. And all those are opportunities. You can have something that stands out as an envelope or a direct mail piece. So I get keeping costs down, but all those little things, those tangible pieces are opportunities for a connection. And
my envelope costs way more than everyone gives me shit about how much I spend on
right, but rather than being like, just send the mailer out.
But let's check conversion rates.
No, it's let's massage the messaging. Is that the best that it could be? Is it creative? Is it going to stop them? And all those things add up. So.
And the follow-up pieces. Just a tip on direct mail. Don't send just one piece. Send an introduction piece, 2 weeks later, follow-up piece that talks about clients' experiences with your firm, and then a final piece 2 weeks later that talks about the urgency of losing evidence, statutes of limitations, notice requirements, just to create a little fire under them, because some people are still sort of sitting on it thinking, oh, I heard that I have 5 years to file my suit in St. Louis. I'm like, yeah, but what evidence are we going to present? It's all gone. You know, you got to get to somebody early. So
5-year statute.
You mean people aren't like, oh yes, I got to get in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Let me jump on a call real quick.
They tried to change it to 2 years. But my bigger point about tips for bringing down the acquisition cost is we all talk about our marketing budgets. All the marketing budgets are designed is to really attract brand new people to call your firm for the first time. Not enough people think about what kind of marketing budget you want to put in to getting people to call you a second time. Because the vast majority of the people that call you the first time, you're going to turn them away because they're calling with a wide variety of things that you don't handle, or it's stuff that you do handle, but they don't have a case. So the question becomes, what kind of investment are you making to keep those people connected to your firm, to keep them in the fold? And the same thing with your former clients and your existing clients. Getting people to call you the second time is where you really drive down your overall case acquisition costs, because it's way cheaper to get them the second time than it was the first time. And yet most firms don't even think of that in terms of a secondary marketing budget. What part should be going toward that?
Yeah, that was a good point. Even going back to like the $100,000 budget situation, that's one of those times, like, it's what they always say, when you start out, you get more time than money, you know? So you spend so much money getting to come to your landing page. Let's use the digital example. Conversion rates on typical lawyer landing pages, 3-4%. You might get up to 12% or something if you're good at what you do. So you're talking about 85, 90, 95% of people that aren't calling you. right? How much does it cost to actually retarget to them? And it's a lot more work. It's a lot more effort. Marketing agencies aren't going to want to do it because they can't charge you a percentage of your spend because it's a lot more effort, and it just doesn't make them as much money. But to your point, you paid however much, 20, 30, 40 bucks to get them there the first time. Why wouldn't you pay $2 to follow them around the internet the rest of their life?
And don't overcomplicate your cost per case for acquisition. Everybody tries so hard to try to pin down, well, what are we paying for a case on television, and what are we paying for a case on pay-per-click? Take your total marketing that you spent for the year and divide it, with the cases that you've signed up that year, and just get a baseline. Everything that we've done together, whether it's from brand awareness to repeat clients to TV, digital, at least you have an idea of this is what it costs me to get it. Because looking at it globally, I think opens up the creativity of ways of driving it down. And for me, I'm all about the repeat business. People that get in accidents tend to get in a lot of accidents, and they have families and they have friends. So to me, every time you can get one of those in the door, it's pretty much a zero acquisition cost, right? Well, if you've been in school and you had an average in a class, and you took a 0 on a test, you know what that did to your average. I mean, you put a couple of zeros in there and you go from you're an A student to you're all the way down here. But that's exactly what you want to have happen with your case acquisition cost. You want to put as many 0 acquisition cases into that average as possible, because that's what's going to make it okay to overspend a little bit on pay-per-click, because you're just focusing constantly on just the average.
Yeah. I'll ask, I think, what probably will be one final question here to you guys, just the only amount of time we have left. It's sort of a fun one. You guys are all pushing the envelope, doing things differently. What, if you, I guess just tell the story, a recent campaign or something that you did that either produced unexpectedly good results or unexpectedly poor results, but something that you enjoyed putting out there. There's examples galore from you guys, but I think that's an interesting way to look at things, because again, it's particularly if you have one that produced unexpectedly poor results, there's a learning experience there.
There is. Well,
Go for it. Reverse order.
I'd like to give myself a moment to think about this question. This was me looking
middle out
polite,
compression,
really buying time.
Okay, I'll just jump back to the metaverse spot. What I thought was a success was that we had like a lot of engagement, a lot of comments, and not from our target market. A lot of like gamers, a lot of young kids who were like, I've never heard of this firm. But that's the key for me. It was like, okay, let's try something new. Let's kind of push the borders of our target and see if we can get outside of the limits of Billboard, TV in the same age range and see what happens. And we played a little bit with the spot itself to hint to like some Fortnite and some Roblox and things like that, and the reaction was amazing. I was stoked to see, people outside, really like taking the time to comment, to share. It was great. I think we got 2 million impressions on something that was like, should we do that? Should we try that? Yeah, let's try that. So it was a success. It's always tough pushing ideas like that through, but I think it was worth a squeeze.
I think there's another one that you guys did last year, which is your jingle campaign. If anybody here has not seen that one, I highly recommend you scroll through the Instagram archives and find that one. But
just a quick one on that. We had a cash prize at the end of that, but basically through the sharing and through the media money that we earned through that far exceeded the actual spend. So that was a massive success, I think.
Now that he shared a success story, I can share a failure story and a lesson learned from it. One of the big questions that always comes up with people at marketing is, do I want to compete in the same pond with all of the other lawyers, which makes it a very crowded pond, but we know that the vast majority of the fish are in that pond? Or do I want to take a chance on some outside pond that doesn't have as many lawyers, but also doesn't have as many fish? That could be a niche area that you get into. In our instance, we thought, you know what? Nobody ever markets on conservative radio. We have to message differently. We know we have to make it about justice and accountability and all the stuff that, they cling to. And we thought, and this is going back a little bit, but it's worth sharing. I mean, we hired Glenn Beck. We thought at the time, he was pretty big at the time. And we're like, we're going to try fishing in a pond that nobody else really fishes in. And I mean, you couldn't ask for a more colossal failure. I don't know. We got one case that I can even remember out of it, and it was from the producer inside the studio who was helping. It wasn't even a member of the public. And we've tried this in different ways over the years, but I have to say that you are better off. You got to be where the cases are. You got to be where the fish are. It doesn't really do you much good otherwise. So you got to get out there with everybody else in the same pond, but you got to bring better fishing gear. And that's really where you got to put your focus in. So if you don't have the good fishing gear, don't even go out fishing for the day, because it's no point. That's like having a ringing phone and nobody to answer it. You have to know how to convert that lead. You got to know how to get that fish in the boat. But if you have to make a decision, go where the fish are. You're going to get more of them that way, despite the fact that the pond is filled with other lawyers.
All right, I'll give you a good example and an example of how we did it poorly. I talk about like co-branding, piggyback branding. Like if you do it authentically, like with someone in your town, it's one of the best campaigns you could do. Like get with like a charity or a hospital or something, and actually do something that's engaging on that level. Because then they just associate you with kind of that other brand and doing something charitable. They end up thinking about you and hiring you. So that works really well. And they're actually interested in that, not I'll call you back. I'm a lawyer. So there's also doing it inauthentically, which goes very bad. So whenever I was first starting, we did a lot of SEO across the country, search engine optimization, organic search, a lot of paid. I was doing a lot of PI referrals, a lot to Morgan. I was like, Florida has, Morgan's just kind of covered, right? I mean, everywhere, it's just huge. So I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy notmorgan.com. So then I started branding, you may like Morgan, what if you don't like Morgan? And then what happened was I ended up getting a lead and referring it to you guys. It went really bad. So it was kind of a funny awareness thing. It was an idea that I thought would be hilarious. I thought John knows about it, he thinks it's funny too, but it's one of those things you gotta get creative.
Do you still own the site?
Oh yeah, we'll do something more with it. It's in the coffer. We'll get a reboot going.
Check that out.
Maybe we'll do a collab.
Yeah.
Even funnier. So I mean, authenticity when it comes to like co-branding or like trying to get into a market. I've done it with like farmers and stuff like that. They'll kick your ass out in a heartbeat. Like if you're trying to get into like litigation around farming or something rural, like communities like that, they can sniff out if you're being fake about it. Like let me pretend like I care about dogs and champion the Humane Society and do some branding with them. No, it's not gonna work. So
it's a problem if you don't care about it.
Yeah, so do something in the community that people care about, co-brand, get into a cause that matters to non-lawyers. That works really well.
And I agree with that. And I think that you should really be careful about the causes you pick. Some people, it's debatable whether they want to take a social position on things, because you don't want to alienate a lot of the people out there that may disagree with you.
Alienate.
I agree with you. I say go ahead and do it if that's what you genuinely believe and it puts you out there, because the amount of loyalty that you can engender within that section of the population is far greater. We are a very socially liberal, progressive firm. So, the causes that we pick, we get very involved during Pride Month. And I can tell you that it means something on an emotional level to the people that attend the Pride Parade. We're the only law firm in town that makes a big show there. And we're not doing it to distinguish ourselves. We're doing it because it's a cause that we firmly believe in. And the people that see us there, their whole opinion of us, the closeness that they feel to us, is exponentially higher. It's better to have a few causes that you really believe in than just trying to spread yourself out and sponsoring a bunch of stuff. I don't think having your name slapped up on a flyer, it does anything for you. If people don't think that you've taken a position that makes them feel connected to you, then it's pretty pointless.
Yeah, I mean, people, you see it all the time. There are some firms whose names are attached to those things constantly. Some firms whose names are never attached to those things. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think to your point, Anthony, go ahead and alienate them. If you can get brand loyalty in whatever segment you're going to get it in, it's like getting the second call, right? It's
we go to war for causes for our clients, but we don't have the balls to have our own causes. Like, take a stance. Like, they'll appreciate it. You'll get more clients. That's how you'll make all your money. The people that are hiring you that don't know what you do, you barely pay the bills with it. That's when you get out of branding, you get out of like just going to the person in the car wreck. That's just paying the bills. All the profit comes with the relationship, the retargeting, people that believe in what you do. So,
all right, we're going to bring this one in on time. Any last comments?
How about we talk about one thing that we recommend they don't do? maybe like
All right,
a new
lightning
start.
round. You got 30 seconds. What do you recommend they don't do?
Don't go to the lonely pond. You'll continue to be lonely.
All right.
I would say don't make safe advertising because the safest advertising runs the risk of not being noticed. So,
Don't be scared. I think lawyers are like, we get whipped in law school to be like politically correct and put in a square in a box and wear a suit and strangle ourselves until we die.
You succeeded in that very well, I can tell.
lasers.
Don't be scared.
Lasers.
Scared goes broke. Scared
All right,
money don't make no money.
All right, thank you.